Welcome to another episode of Is It a Biological Gender Difference or Is It Patriarchy? This is a little subset I like to call, wow, a male scientist had to do a study to prove something that women have been talking about for centuries. Turns out having no power or a lot of power in the world affects the way that you behave. Gee, I wonder who could have told them that already. So according to this study, a lot of the women are like this and men are like this rhetoric that we get blasted with throughout our lives really just comes down to the fact that if you have a lot of power in the world versus a little power in the world, you're going to behave differently. I know, absolute fucking shocker. So the study looked at some typically gendered or gender attributed behaviours such as having more or less agency and being more or less interpersonally sensitive, and tried to look at what the relationship between these things and your perceived or actual power in society, in a relationship or in a situation might actually affect the way that you behave and are. Unsurprisingly, the authors found that a lot of the traits typically attributed to men are also attributed and found in people with power, whereas only 8 outcomes associated with women, as in gendered traits we think of as female, were also associated with power. Men and people with power tend to display higher agency, more positive self-evaluations, lower empathy and sociability, and higher performance on spatial and creative tasks compared to low-power individuals and women. So the study concluded that the strong connection between perceived gender differences and power differences suggests that many of these so-called gender differences are driven, at least in part, by power differences between men and women. Which, can we just reflect for a second on the fact that probably one of the big reasons why a lot of men don't believe that gender-based oppression exists or that women are having a different experience in the world than men is because they have fundamentally never felt disempowered the way that women have, and they cannot perceive the different types of accommodations and coping mechanisms and behaviors that you adopt when you are the powerless one in a scenario. Meanwhile, women are clipped and groomed their whole lives to work out how to be more safe and to be as independent as they possibly can within an uneven power dynamic that they are on the powerless end of. So of course, women become better at being sensitive to social cues, better at de-escalating conflict, reluctant to negotiate for their own causes in ways that they think might end up in them being retaliated against or punished. You see this a lot in the workplace. I think a lot of people who have power just fundamentally don't understand that the way that people are responding to them is based on the fact that you have the power and the person that you're speaking to doesn't. Anyway, this was just an incredibly obvious conclusion to come to, and I'm so grateful that we now have a man and his team studying it.